NFL draft, we've been hearing a lot of buzz about potential picks. I've been on the phones all week, and I figure, let's just bring it all out. Let's empty the notebook. Here's a segment we're calling What I Heard This Weekend. We did this last year before the draft, and some of that stuff was Stingley might go before Sauce. He did. Trayvon Walker will go before Aiden Hutchinson. He did, and then I was wrong on probably a ton of it. But here we go. What I heard this weekend, starting with number 5, time and time again, Houston is not scared to pass on a quarterback. It makes so much sense to take a quarterback. You can't really go into the season with a number 2 overall pick and say, Davis Mills is our guy, right? You can. And the way they see this thing, Houston has the 2 and the 12. So think about the 2 and the 12 as a whole. If you can get Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson at 2, you can also use that 12 pick to either move up to get a quarterback, or you can stay at 12 and get a quarterback if one falls. If you take the quarterback at 2, you will not get Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson in this draft. These guys are viewed as franchise pillars, Wilson and Anderson. Now, if you view C.J. Stroud that way, quarterback is probably the most important position in all of sports. Get the guy. If you don't, well, then maybe you take one of the other guys and you let Stroud slip and you let it chips fall where they may. And if you have to trade back up to get higher than 12, you could have got the ammo to do it with second-round picks and whatever else. But I hear they are not scared to just take the best defensive player on their board. Now, you would think DeMeco Ryans and Will Anderson, and Nick Saban says that Will Anderson is the hardest worker he has ever had on a defense. The Texas Tech thing is different. When you got Tyree Wilson, who did not have the production in college, does not come from a defensive program, yet the length, the build, that seems to fit what DeMeco Ryans and those 49ers defensive linemen did as far as complete build as a long 4-down defensive lineman. I'm fascinated to see what Houston does, and that's what makes every pick afterwards up for grabs, including number 3, which is our next point here. Arizona is open for business at 3. I've heard from multiple teams that you can have the Arizona pick if you're willing to make an offer, which makes it really intriguing with all of these quarterbacks up top. You have a first-year head coach in Jonathan Gannon. You have a first-year general manager in Monty Ossenfort, and you have an owner, Michael Bidwill, who looks to be maybe rebuilding this thing on the fly. Now, I thought it was interesting.
Baby.
Not only did JG, Jonathan Gannon, and not only did Monty, but the PR staff of Mark Dalton and Chris Melvin and Drew Pensing, the offensive coordinator, they all went to Norman, Oklahoma this weekend. And they were all there to support Kyler as his statue was unveiled. Now, a lot of critics were out there, and that's fair, saying, why are they doing that as opposed to being in the room, building their board and all that stuff? Truth of the matter is, that symbol was Kyler is our guy. We are here for him, and we are a group that is going to have his back through everything. Kyler's the guy, which means 3 could be up for sale. All right, my next point. In my mock draft, I had Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia, going in the first round. The amount of people who hit me up saying, major mistake in that you don't have Sam Laporta in there. I said, all right, Washington's the guy who put up the huge stats and had the awesome combine, the whole thing. So who is Sam Laporta? Sam Laporta is a tight end out of Iowa, which is a tight end factory. You want to go down the list of Dwight Clark, and you go right to Hawkinson or Noah Fant, and of course George Kittle. This is the guy, Laporta, and he was a stud at Iowa. He didn't get much action his first 2 years, as is the case with all these Iowa players. You got to wait your time. And then he blew up, and he was second place in the best tight end award thing. But Laporta is higher than Washington on a lot of boards, despite Washington being the big name at the combine and, of course, having all that success on the national champion Georgia Bulldogs. All right, next point here that I have heard, and I'm going to throw out here on this show. I don't know, this might be controversial.
Oh, Peter, what do you got?
Jalen Carter will not escape the top 6.
Top 6, all right.
Forget top 10. I'm hearing top 6 at this point. And top 10 was the backstop as to why Drew Rosenhaus didn't have a meeting with all these teams. Look, I could be wrong, and these teams could be wrong. It doesn't come from me. This comes from the way the draft is set here. You've got Anderson, Wilson, and Carter as your 3 stud blue-chip defensive linemen. And then there's a major drop-off after that, and it's the Nolan Smiths and the Lucas Van Nesses, and you can go down the list of that next tier. But that Carter is a blue chipper, and if you look at the teams that are up in the top 10, the Seahawks have the 5 and the 20. The Lions have the 6 and the 18. Not that Carter's a risk as far as a player goes, but if you swing on Carter and it's a complete mess, and he betrays your trust, the whole thing. You've got 18, you've got 20, you've got someone else there.
Oh my God.
So I'm looking at 5 and 6, either Seattle or Detroit, and the expectation that this man is not going to slip out of the top 6. And my number one point here, and the last one that I got on this, is that as much as the running back position has been devalued and the running back position is now worthless and we don't care, and there's a million Isaiah Pachecos and you can start any 7th round pick, there's going to be 2 running backs in the 1st round. One of them is Bijan Robinson. Believe he goes, and look, they could go anywhere. This could be as high as 8 to Atlanta. It could be as low as 25 to the Giants. Bijan Robinson to go. But not only Bijan Robinson, but our guest on the show today, Jahmyr Gibbs, is expected to go in the 1st round as well. A lot of different teams have told me that, at the end of the 1st round, this is the guy to watch. And that, in fact, some teams have them a lot closer than you imagine. Robinson's been the pre-draft love from everybody, but Gibbs, late in the process, has picked up a lot of steam because of his pass-catching ability.
Oh, my God, he's still going.
Because
still going.
What
is this?
And also because of the way the NFL is built right now. Now, look, we love what Robinson is. We had him on the show last week. He is Saquon Barkley. He could be that, and he can do all that. This is more of a Kamara McCaffrey type where it's, hey, you need to line out wide. You could be that slot receiver. He's not as big, obviously, as Bijan Robinson, but he might have more elusive ability. It can maybe move a little bit more after the pass. So here is my 5 things that I've heard, and I'm going to put my name on both of them, all right? Bijan and Gibbs both go in the 1st round. Jalen Carter will not fall out of the top 6. Laporta out of Iowa, who has gotten 0 buzz before the Combine darling Washington out of Georgia. Arizona open for business at 3. Let's see if that's a Tennessee. Let's see if I don't even know. I don't have the team, but they're open for business if someone wants to get up there. And then 5, these guys, they might just take the best defensive player on their board at 2 and deal with all the haters.
Peter, I'm looking at Jalen Carter. I think it's framed oddly. You don't have top 5. You don't have top 6. 6 is Detroit. Do we think there's some action there with the Dan Campbell thing at Detroit and that maybe they're the team to grab him? Is that why this is coming through as top 6?
It's that, and it's also, you've got those 3 defensive linemen, Wilson, Anderson, and Carter, and then you've got teams, and you're like, Seattle's probably a dominant defensive lineman away from saying we're the favorites in the NFC West. Detroit's probably a dominant guy on the inside to go with Aiden Hutchinson and say we're the favorites. And both those teams don't need to take a quarterback at 5 and 6. So Seattle or Detroit, I would be surprised. Again, I've been wrong a million times before. I'd be surprised if one of them don't take him in the top 6.
Oh, Peter, where do I start? The way this draft has come together, I'm looking at number 5. Houston not scared to pass on a quarterback. There's so much value at the quarterback position in this draft, though, and there's so many teams in need. Why wouldn't they trade that pick away and not just pass on a guy?
Makes sense. Load up. I would think they would. They don't have much talent on the roster right now.
Right.
And if you can get the best defensive player, all right, that's our Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
That's our Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
And Tyree Wilson has been compared to that. Will Anderson, everyone says, is all world. He might be the number 2 overall pick. It's one of those deals where it's like they've got the 2 and the 12. Let's get 2 great players in this thing. And if they don't see one of the quarterbacks as a next generation quarterback or the guy that they need, they're not going to reach to do it. So, is someone willing to trade up? Maybe they'll listen, but they might just take that number 1 defensive player. And be good.
I'm fascinated by 4 Arizona open for business because you just talked about Houston possibly passing on the quarterback. That changes them at 3 and who could possibly want to trade to that spot. But then also Indianapolis being at 4 because now they may have their eyes set on who they want to be their quarterback, and someone trades up to 3 to take the guy they want. Like we've all said for the past month, like that's kind of where the draft starts at 3 with Arizona. I'm so intrigued to see what happens.
What's tricky is that you look at the quarterback needy teams. Houston, I know Davis Mills might be the guy. I would think that you can say that Davis Mills is not winning a Super Bowl next year. I would think, just what we saw from the first 2 years. He's a good quarterback. He's fine, but is he that guy? Okay, so say Houston needs a quarterback. Tennessee needs a quarterback. Indiana, they're all in the same division. So the trade partners get weird. Arizona's a natural place for a trade partner. They're out of the conference. They're not a threat. You're not going to have to see C.J. Stroud twice if you see these guys.
Peter, this looks like a victory lap for you next Monday.
Yeah, it does.
I'm going to take your picture right now. Peter, wave. Just wave to me on the camera. Here it is. There goes Peter. All right. That's what he heard this weekend. What will he hear tonight?